All right, so now you sort of planned out, what you want on your disk, and you're ready to move on to the authoring stage. So now the question is, how do you find the right authoring team, or the right authoring facility, or the right authoring engineer for yourself? Some very simple things to consider here. Number one, of course, is the experience and references, right? You want to ask whoever you're interviewing for the job, for the outsourcing of that disk. You want to make sure that they've done quite a few titles, that they understand your vision, that they can work with your style, and get some references also to make sure that they're going to be compatible with your needs. The next step is you want to make sure they have the right tools in their belt, right? And this is very important, because the last thing you want to do is have your disk authored, and then they can't make a proper master. So we talked about AACS, which is the licensing for the Blu-ray, and we want to make sure that the software that the authoring team is using is completely compliant with AACS and is registered with the AACS, and they can make a proper Blu-ray master format for the production aspect of it. And I wrote over here BDCMF or Sony CMF. You don't really know what that is. Basically, it's a cutting master format for the final replication of the product, and it has to be encrypted. So we got to make sure that they have the right tool. So, for example, a couple of quick tools that I listed here. The one that we use in our facility is the same as the Hollywood Studios. It's the Sonic Sonaris system that we use for our authoring in the EasyBD123 program here at Acutrack. And, of course, the other one, the big player, is Sony Blueprint, and there are a couple other ones like Juice Studio and a couple others that you can check out online. Next thing is you want to make sure, this is very important, is whoever is your team member or whoever your partner is going to be for the authoring, that they have a very consultative attitude. The last thing you need is a yes man on your team. Of course, it's your vision, it's your product, but you want somebody to come back and tell you whether some things may or may not work, or may not look good on the screen, or maybe there's a better way to do it. So you don't want to just have a guy who's just scared to talk to you and not say anything and just do what you ask. You want to have somebody who can you can bounce ideas off and get some feedback from. And of course, the last thing is always make sure that whoever the authoring house is gives you a BDR check disk to look at. A lot of places, and we've heard stories of places where they just said, okay, watch the simulator, come in and watch the simulator or simulated version of the disk, and then they go ahead and make the master, and one button is not working properly. So now you have 1,000 or 2,000 coasters for Blu-ray. So you don't want to do that. So you want to make sure that they're going to offer you a check disk so you can go home, take a look at it, watch it on your Blu-ray player, and make sure it's working fine for everything. And as part of our process with the EasyBD123 program is that we always offer a check disk before we even consider going to production. So great, now you've picked up the right authoring facility, and you're ready to hand off your assets. So now let's look at some of the typical source media that we see at our facility that people provide, and these are most typical for most video production houses or publishers. So the first one is we normally get a digital file on a hard drive as an uncompressed high-definition QuickTime or an AVI high-definition file. Files are normally pretty large, so they have to give a hard drive. The second, of course, we accept some digital tapes as well for high-definition formats. For example, the D5 tape, the HDCam SR tape. And I'm not going to waste too much time on the specs, but of course, you want to consider the specs also for your source, whether it's progressive scan or interlaced. And there's a lot more information on our website about the video specifications, whether it's 1080p or 1080i or 720 and so on and so forth. So please feel free to go on Acutrack.com and check that out at your own convenience. Next step in the process is you want to make sure that you've got the right authoring house and they understand your vision. You've already imagined it, but now the more you do up front, the easier it's going to be for you and your authoring team to implement your vision, and also to probably cut down on your costs a little bit as well, because there'll be no surprises in the middle of the process. So number one is list your asset files with all the time lengths. Remember we talked about total running time of all the various assets. That's a very important thing. You want to make sure that you prioritize the assets. So we gave an example earlier of Preview 1 and Preview 2, then the Interpol or FBI warning. So you want to make sure you prioritize the assets for the authoring engineer that, okay, I want this preview to be number 1, I want this preview to be number 2, and so on and so forth to make life easy. If you're going to be designing your own menu and sub-menus, make sure you get the guidelines for the menus from the authoring facility. We offer guidelines on our website for if people want to design their own menu. We, of course, design for them based on their vision. But if you do that yourselves, you want to make sure that all your buttons are listed, the design is very clear, and it follows the guidelines clearly. In the flowchart, you also want to define the navigation. So maybe just draw like arrows to what buttons go where and the link to which video streams. So that'll really help you and also the authoring engineer to make sure that the vision is understood clearly. Chapter point time codes are very important. We get this all the time. People normally will forget to put their time codes for the main chapter points in for example, the main film. And they'll say, so just give you an example, let's just say somebody's making a video about how to make hamburgers, and the client will say, I want the first chapter point when the person is grilling the meat, and the next chapter point when they're putting on the pickles. So the problem with that is that if the authoring engineer has to watch your entire assets to go kind of guesstimate the chapter points, he may or may not get the chapter points exactly where you want them, right? So it's a good idea to kind of go through the video ahead of time, and in the flow chart, write down the chapter points, the chapter name, and the chapter number. Very easily, you can say, okay, I want chapter 1 to be, the meat being grilled, and it starts at 2 minutes and 22 seconds and 10th frame. So then it makes life really easy. It's pretty easy to understand and keep moving forward with the process, and cuts down the cycle time as well. Additional audio features, any additional audio features you want, whether it's multiple languages or director commentary, list that so they understand that it's going to be coming in the process of creating the first disc. Pop-up menu we already talked about. Define what you want to see as an overlay menu on top of a video in the pop-up, and where you want it on the screen, so it gives a good idea to the engineer as well. And of course, any optional features that you want, like animation sequences, or you want a specific sound to come when you hit a particular button, so that you can say, okay, I want a ding sound to occur when they click on the main menu before it goes to plays the movie. So then the engineer knows that they have to program that, and they also know that, okay, the ding sound is being supplied to them. So that stuff makes life easy. So now basically we've covered the how to get the good authoring team, how to prepare your assets, and how to flowchart it so they understand your vision. The next step, now you're in good hands, so now you can stop worrying about the authoring portion of it. Now the next thing you have to worry about is the licensing portion. So we're going to talk about the licensing now. So what is the Blu-ray licensing? What is AACS? Well, AACS stands for Advanced Access Content System. Okay, and what it is, to make life really simple, you don't need to worry about anything else. Just keep in mind that it's, number one, is mandatory, and it's a mandatory content distribution and digital rights management standard for Blu-ray disc. That's all it is. So it comes with copy protection, and it's required. What it does for you, it gives you the ability to have some security that your disc is not going to be easily pirated. There's no guarantee, of course, but it won't be easily pirated, and it prevents copying of the disc in general. So the licensing itself, when you go on forums, it seems very, very complicated, but in general, there are only 3 parts to it. Okay, it's pretty simple. The first part is your publisher code, which is the Content Publisher Agreement, the CPA code. And what that is and how you get that is basically you go to the AACS LA website, which is, and these directions, by the way, are given very clearly on our website, step by step, so you don't have to think about it. You can just follow them step by step, and you can easily do it. And the AACS LA stands for Advanced Access Content System Licensing Administrator. It's a long name for a group of companies that basically came up with this whole licensing agreement, and they kind of manage the whole thing. So you basically go onto their website, you click on the licensing agreement. It's like a 159-page document, but like I said, we give you very specific instructions of what to do, so you don't have to be buried under a lot of paperwork. And you register with that paperwork, and you when you send them the paperwork and your money, you basically get a 4-digit code, which is your publisher license code, essentially, which is good for for all your titles. And there are a couple of payment options available to you, and I'm going to display them both now so I can talk about them a little bit. What it used to be a couple of years ago, actually up until July of 2009, you had to pay them a $3,000 upfront fee, a one-time fee to get your license for a lifetime. And what happened then is that a lot of people were so afraid, oh my God, $3,000, and I'm only publishing 2 Blu-ray titles in the next 5 years. That's a lot of money. So they saw people were kind of sitting on the fence and not really jumping on the Blu-ray bandwagon. So the AACS decided, okay, let's make it easier. So in July of 2009, they gave another option, which is now the default option, and that's why this is option A, is that you can pay a $500 per year fee as long as you continue to publish titles. So if you're publishing first title or first 5 titles in the first year, you pay $500 and you're good to go. And next year, if you don't publish anything, you don't pay anything. Third year, you decide to publish again, you pay $500 more. And once you hit, after your 6 payments of $500, you hit that cap of $3,000, then you're done. Then there's no more payment required after that. So the CPA license is then yours forever. All right, so that's the first part, is your publisher code. The second part is a title fee per disc, and that's why it's called a title fee. So every time you release a new title of Blu-ray, there's a one-time $500 fee that is charged at the production glass mastering time. Okay, and it's a one-time fee for that particular title. And what that does, basically, it registers that Blu-ray title under your CPA umbrella, under your publishing code with the AACS LA. Okay, so it's pretty nice that way. It's controlled. You know, they know, and everybody else knows how many titles you've published, and it gives you kind of good credibility in the marketplace. So it's a positive thing to have. And of course, the third fee is the royalty fee, which is 4 cents per disc that's charged at the time of production. Okay, so the question now is, why do you need AACS? Well, the first thing I already mentioned, it is mandatory. There's no way to get around it. Number two, as I mentioned earlier, it does allow you a controlled process. So, you know, your discs are licensed and, you know, they are registered with the AACS, so which is good for everybody from a piracy standpoint, from a publishing standpoint. And number three, of course, is the AACS consortium, which is, you know, includes a bunch of companies, Sony, Intel, Microsoft, and so on and so forth, that invested billions of dollars in, you know, developing this Blu-ray technology and bringing it to market. So they're basically looking for a return on investment. Okay, so that's kind of the reason why you need the AACS. All right, now you covered the authoring. Your authoring is going on. You've understood the licensing part. Now you got to go, and assuming the disc is done in the authoring stage, you've washed your check disc. It's all good to go. Now you have to find the right manufacturer.